Good morning, YouTube world. Happy 4th of July. Hey, Car Key. Teddy Car Key's here. You want to say hi? Not yet? Okay. He wants to wait till there's a larger audience, Carol. So he knew you would understand. And good morning, Miss Dawn. If you're on here, if you hadn't maybe stepped away. Good to see both of you this morning. I get two perspectives. How's it, Carol? How is it in the great state of Michigan? Sorry, I was a few minutes late, or a couple minutes late, whatever. 4, 3, maybe. I was sitting here I was lollygagging upstairs, fixing coffee and stuff, and realized I was running behind. Yeah, I'm afraid, and I blame you for that, Carol. Because he says he's all about you, and you want to see Carol? You want to see Miss Carol? Come here. Come here. Say good morning. Ouch. Calm down. You're not gonna look at the camera. You're not gonna look at the camera. Let me turn you around here so you have to. Say hi. Hey, you want to get down? Now you're looking. You want to see what they're saying about you? She said, hello, Super Teddy. She did. That's what she calls you. I call you something else most of the time, don't I? And happy 4th of July to Edward. Hop down. That might be his only appearance for the day. He might come back in a little bit. No, sir. He smells something over there he wants. I'm cheating today. I'm having a sausage biscuit for breakfast, which I know is probably not on my diet, or not a diet, but try not to eat bread, but this is my one day exception, or supposed to be. Well, that's, I don't know how to really work that. I got to talk to a professional, because I don't know how to, and I probably don't have enough followers and stuff to make it pop up, like on the notification board. But at least somebody's getting it. I hate that it ran late, but I don't know. I think that's YouTube. I don't think there's anything I can do about that. Here I go. Same thing every week. I start yawning. I can get up at 6 a.m. and it's still time to sit here and yawn. You guys got any big 4th of July plans or for the weekend? Carol, when do you usually get it? When I post, you get it 30 minutes before the show, or when do you get it normally? Joy Sanudo, welcome in. I believe I said that correctly. If I didn't, please correct me now. How far do you have to go? Carol. I mean, that's the thing. I'm not sure how much traveling I want to do. Well, I probably won't go watch it unless it's from a distance anyway. But so I can sit in the car. For a friend of mine, I was talking to him last night on the phone and was asking him if he was going to do anything this weekend. Well, I didn't really ask him. He didn't give me the total chance. He was going to mow his yard today, and I thought about asking him if he'd come up and help me with something. And before I could say anything, he said he was going to mow his yard today instead of yesterday. He didn't mow it yesterday because, as he put it, he's retired like me. He said it wasn't on his schedule. It was scheduled for today. So even though yesterday turned out nice, he was waiting. And lost track there. I looked at the chat and lost. Hi, John. Surf Bum's here with us today. Good morning, John. Wow, that train left the station. He just said he wasn't getting out. I think the stories and the news and the fact that everybody's going somewhere this weekend to get out of the house, get going, has him wanting to stay off the roads. Gas around here has already gone up. I mean, I guess it has everywhere, but it's up a few cents from what it was last week. And I don't know if you believe all the news feeds and stories, travel is going to be heavy this weekend. So I can't say I blame people. I mean, I know we all been cooped up for months, but over a year really for a lot of people. How's John this morning? How's the Jersey Shore? Maybe not the Jersey Shore, but maybe the Pines. I think you're close to the Pines. About 30 minutes. Does Mackinac Island shoot fireworks, Carol? Do you know? Oh, wait a minute. I'm probably confusing where you live. You don't live that far up, do you? Crowded. I bet it is. Fortunately, I think you live in an area of the country where most people are vaccinated and COVID's not on the rise again. Unfortunately, I can't really say that. I live in one of those states where vaccinations are low and COVID's on the rise. Hey, Dean, the turkey lecturer is with us. The day is hip, hip, hooray. Kalu Kalay, my Beamish boy. Welcome. 45 minutes north of Ohio. Are you you live closer to Ann Arbor, don't you? Or it's Shelley that lives up close to Sheboygan. I wonder if the that'd be if they did it. I don't know if they would, but Mackinac Island would be kind of a neat place because you could see it from all around. Not that there's everything, you probably can't get all around, but it would be kind of interesting. I apologize. I'm just going to say I'm sorry this time, and we'll just have to. You'll have to ignore me if I keep you on. It'll pass here in a few minutes, or it usually does. I thought you were. I got to thinking about that, and you were closer to there than not. So you're near Badger or Wolverine country, right? Or is that Spartan country? That's where Michigan is, isn't it? Ann Arbor. Until I figured out what their helmets were, I thought they had the goofiest looking helmets. Football team I'm talking about now. Michigan's football team, because they've got those stripes on them. And until I found out they were the Wolverines and kind of knew what they were shooting for, it made a little bit more sense. It's still kind of odd, especially if you've never seen a Wolverine, but I don't know. I wonder if there are any Wolverines left in that part of. I doubt down your way there's probably none, but I have to ask Shelly if they ever have a run in with Wolverines up their way. It's a very impressive animal. I both probably love them and fear them because they're pretty bad. They are very strong and resilient and hell for leather creatures. Everybody hear people talk about the honey badger, but I don't know that the honey badger is any more, pardon me, but more badass than a wolverine is. Man, they're something else. Not a Michigan football player. I mean a real animal. Well, that'd be cool. You could get off the shore on a boat, or even stand over the shoreline at Mackinac City and probably down towards Sheboygan too. For that, maybe still see them down that far. I mean, that's a few miles further down, but I've told this story, I know, but I spent a couple days there one time accidentally. We were going canoeing in the Boundary Waters in Minnesota, and our transmission went out in our truck, and we just before we entered the Big Mac, the bridge, and just enough that we could coast off the highway down into town before we got up on the bridge and broke down, which would have been horrible. And good morning, Cherie. I hope you're having a decent day at work this morning. Anyway, we camped on Lake Huron side the night or two, and I just thought the lake was amazing. I mean, it was compared to reservoirs, lakes down here, it was crystal clear. Not that some of ours aren't clean and clear, but not like that. I was very impressed. Oh, he's a 4th of July baby. That's cool. I wouldn't mind having that birthday for a birthday. Well, good for you, Cherie. Lunch breaks are good. I mean, usually. They always were for me anyway. Since my food's sitting here in obvious display, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to take a bite. I got up on time this morning, but then I was lollygagging around upstairs making coffee and talking to Brenda, and something came on TV. Next thing I know, I look at the clock up there and it said 9:55. So I panicked, and I would say I ran downstairs real quick, but there's no such thing as running downstairs for me right now. So I scuttled might be a good word. Anyway, I got down the stairs, and then I got down here and realized her clock was wrong. What was that, Teddy? Woodpecker. Got a woodpecker on the house. I hear him out there thumping. Teddy does too. Go get him, boy. I'll have to check on that. They get started pecking on your house. Sometimes they don't want to quit. Oh, Cherie, I appreciate that. I hate that you had to come in. Oh, you didn't come in at 5 a.m. for me though, right? Please tell me you didn't do that just on my account. I mean, I'm flattered, but I hate for you to put yourself through that. I used to work crazy shifts like that, or not shifts, but when I worked in Nashville and was doing airplane stuff, long days were common, and we used to do what we call work. We had kind of two choices, I guess. We sort of felt like we invented something called undertime. Instead of overtime, we'd come in at between 5 and 6 in the morning and work 2 hours before everybody else got there. Of course, we usually didn't get to go home early. We usually worked, 2 hours after everybody else left, it seemed like. But I got in that habit of getting up and going places early back then, and that was just kind of standard operating procedure for me back that day. I don't really rise and shine quite like that anymore. Don, I have to admit, I see Cherie Wester. Is that I can't Alani video? I've got to watch that. I saw it last night, and I was really not watching much last night, so I kind of engrossed in the hockey game. So I'll have to admit I haven't seen it yet, but I was planning on watching it. Now that was a mistake. I don't want to shoot. I may just have to heat those up later. I hate to eat in front of you guys. Another job I had one time before I even worked on airplanes. When I first got married, I was finishing up my aircraft license. Well, actually, I got finished, and then Brenda and I got married, but I didn't have a job yet, and in that field. So I temporarily took a job working for the Coca-Cola Bottling Company of Johnson City, Tennessee. Man, what a job. Probably another reason I drink Pepsis today, but actually I drank Pepsis before that. Couldn't tell them that, though, because you could get fired for that, as you can imagine. But that was an early rising job, and if you really wanted to be on top of it, you had to come in even earlier because you need to really check your truck. At that time, the place where I worked, they had pre-salesmen that went around and sold the product. We didn't have to put the hard sell on anybody, which I was glad for. But that also meant they loaded your truck. Or they didn't. They gave a list and the crew loaded it. And every once in a while, they'd mess up, wouldn't put something on it. Hey, Tina McNeil. Good morning, ma'am. And a couple of times that bit me in the butt because I didn't get there early enough to check my inventory very often. I felt like they should have had it right. Man, you talk about a hard job. Back then, we had to set up displays and haul everything in and out ourselves, and we didn't have lifts, and we just had a 2-wheel dolly, and I could tell you how much every carton of Cokes weighed, cans, or we had 32-ounce bottles back then. That was a big thing, so we put a lot of those on the floor, and a carton of 32-ounce Coke bottles in a carton. They were in a paper carton, just like the small bottles used to be. It was 38 pounds. I think it was 38. Maybe that was a case that weighed 38 pounds, which was 4 cartons in a flat. And I counted it up one time. I mean, on a given day, we might load a couple of tons of just 2 liters in and out of a store. And you talk about lean, mean fighting machine. Now, that was it. Brenda says that's probably the leanest and hardest I've ever been. That was my hands were like, I've had tough hands, calloused hands. I mean, I worked all my life in that, in a hard fashion, but I never had anything make my hands as hard and tough as wheeling that dolly around and lifting and setting down those cart crates and doing that work. My calluses were so thick. Brenda didn't even like to hold hands. She said it was just unusual. And I lost a lot of weight back then. I was pretty skinny for me. I never really been a skinny guy. That was a tough job. I always envied the Coca-Cola. I actually envied the Pepsi guys. They didn't have to do as much of the lifting on their routes. And then the beer guys, they had it made, we thought, because they didn't have to pick up anything usually. And we had to still pick up empty returnable bottles, which I actually wish would come back, but that added to my job because I had to sort and load those up, and it made my days long. In some places, some stores would sort them out for us, and some wouldn't. But anyway, that was a tough job. Good morning, Francisco. That's a fun word to say, Francisco. Good morning, sir. Happy Saturday to you. Now I know you're a Dodgers fan. Do you actually live in the San Francisco area, or maybe Frisco may be your name, but and you're not a Giants fan, so maybe that's irrelevant too. But do you live on the West Coast? Is what I was trying to say. For some reason, I thought you lived in the Bay Area, but I'm not sure why I thought that. Probably made a bad assumption on your name. I need to figure out another way and something else to say about that, because Tracy may have a patent pending on that. Francisco. It's a fun word to say, Francisco. So I may have to alter that. I may have to say something different. But welcome in, my friend. So you live in L.A. My wife was born in La Jolla, down towards San Diego. Of course, I'm sure you know that. But her grandmother was in, and I don't know how she lived in Bellflower and near Anaheim. And I don't know I guess that's where my mother-in-law grew up too. So I'm not sure how maybe she went down to San Diego to chase sailors, because that's kind of what happened. Well, I was, Tracy. I'm just saying maybe I should do it different. He wasn't in, what got that started was Tracy wasn't in a chat one day, and somebody said, we need some, Tracy's not here to welcome Francisco. And so I tried it, and then they all said if Tracy wasn't around, I got the job. So I've been doing it since then. I was just sitting there thinking Tracy might sue me for infringing on his Francisco rights or something. So you say you live in LA. I'm not trying to get you to tell us your address or anything, but what part of LA, if you don't mind? Like I said, she lived in Bellflower, and she was there until, I guess she was in the Bellflower area until she moved back east. And she wasn't from the east. Actually, she was originally from Oklahoma, which is another story, but she moved back here for the last few years of her life to kind of be around the grandkids. I think our kids might have been her only great grandchildren. No, she may have had an older one out in California. I know my wife's uncle never had any kids that I know of, and she had one aunt that had at least one child, but she was older. So ours were probably the youngest great grandchildren. She had those would have been grandchildren. These were great grandchildren. Of course, my wife and her brother were grandchildren. But that's an interesting story. I don't know if we have any Sooners in here or not. No, pretty sure we don't today. But my wife's grandmother was a honest to God Okie / Grapes of Wrath traveler. I may have told this before. San Gabriel Valley. Okay. Are you in an area where you have to worry about the mudslides, Francisco? I hope not. I've read up on some of that out there, and I know that the slides are. I mean, we see them on TV and stuff, but I read a good book one time that explained a lot more about that and the phenomena, and of course what caused it. And well, that's good. I'm glad you don't. Those things can be very devastating, as most people know. Anyway, she was an honest to God Dust Bowl Okie that they left Oklahoma in the early 30s, mid 30s, to get away from the Dust Bowl and try to find work somewhere, and ended up living in a camp on the beach in California somewhere. I know those existed. I've not. Nat. I missed him. Teddy will see it and he'll come flying across the desk trying to catch it. I know they existed, but she told, I wish I could have sat her down and actually been smart and written down all the notes. I got to sit down with her a couple of times and go through pictures. She had boxes of pictures, and she was a meticulous note taker. She took notes on everything. She had her whole life written out in ring binders or spiral notebooks, I think. Maybe she had by that time, where everything she did on a given day, she jotted down. So she could go back 40, 50 years and look in a journal. It wasn't really a journal. It was more like a log of what she did that day. And we could, she could tell me what she did at 4:00 that day. She went to see the doctor. At 2:30, she had an appointment. And it may have started when she was an Avon salesperson. She won what they call, I think, the Avon's Presidential Award in California several times. Or maybe it's just the Los Angeles area for being the top Avon salesperson in the state, city. I don't know how that worked exactly, but she won that many times apparently, and drove around Los Angeles or Bellflower. I don't know how far she roamed in a small electric car. And this was back in the 50s and 60s, I guess. It was blue. I think it was a convertible. It was kind of a boxy looking thing. It wasn't near as sexy as a Tesla or something like that, but it was certainly an electric car. But anyway, she told me about traveling out there, and she said it was very much like, the images you can think of or remember if you've ever seen The Grapes of Wrath. The Dodd family, I think that's right, was traveling out there with, everything loaded on a truck and, people sitting everywhere they could basically, and dirt roads and dusty and, having to fix flat tires all the time. And she said it was just like that. They patched and repatched tires and that they finally made it out there. I don't know how long the trip took them. Like I said, I wish I had sat down with her and gotten more details. I got smarter about doing that like a little bit later on after she moved here, but then I wasn't able to sit down with her and really do what I needed to do before she passed, which was kind of sudden like, but she was an interesting lady. John Vandenberg's kind of in the more in the middle of the state, isn't it? Which is not a bad thing. I was thinking it was or east of LA, maybe. Not sure. I've been to California one time. My wife's been out there 3 times, maybe 3 or 4. She lived a couple years out there when she was born. They lived out there for several years, and she was born in 57, and they came back east in, I think, in 59 or 60. And she was 2, going on 3 or so when they moved back. She didn't remember much about being out there, but her dad was in the Navy. Her mom was the local. That's why I said sailor chasing. I have a feeling that's what was going on there. He was based out of I can't remember what that port's called down there. I want to say NAS San Diego, but that's not right. I mean, I think there's another name. I actually I do. I wish I had too, Carol, because my uncles were, well, they were a different story. But my grandmother, of course, my grandparents, both my parents for that matter, lived through the Depression. But both my grandparents, of course, were doing things far before that. I would like to have known. I would like to have gotten their memories or opinions of like the Depression era and during those times and before that. I had one. My grandfather was in World War One on my mother's side of the family. I don't think my grandfather on my dad's side was. Not sure if he was. He might have been younger. May not have been eligible at that time. I'm not sure how that worked. I'll have to look that up. Brenda has all that. She's been doing genealogy on our families for several years, and she came down here last night to ask me some questions, history questions about the Plymouth area and the Pilgrims and whatnot, and because she's found some ancestors that were born in Plymouth, or actually, Plymouth and Plimpton, which is near Plymouth in Massachusetts. Not sure, Carol, about that. Oh, are you asking me or John? Oh, it is right on the coast. Okay. I did not know that. I was thinking it was more like Brandenburg, or not Brandenburg. Wherever they do all the flying, and I thought they did missiles up there too. Edwards. I know they landed the space shuttles there. I'm going to say this, Carol, and you can laugh. Is that Hunemi? How's that pronounced? I know you can't tell me, but anyway, her dad was on a subtender, whose name I can't remember at this moment. And I was just sitting here thinking, I've got medals. I've got some of his submarine stuff. I think I put them in the safe to lock them up. Hunemi. That's Tennessee speak, so that may not be quite right, but Dawn can help. If Dawn's still in here, she can help correct me. She probably understands. She speaks enough Tennessee to understand. She's retained it even after 30 years in Texas. John, you did. What you did still fascinates me. I mean, which I'm not even going to begin to ask you questions that you might not want to answer. So, but like I said, I walked up on a missile silo once in edge of Wyoming, Nebraska, and it was, for me, and it was nothing that, I mean, most people would laugh, I guess, but for me, it was such a profound feeling to realize that I was standing, yards away from something that could fly out of that hole and, destroy humankind, if you will. It was, that's not a dig or a negative take on that. I mean, it's just reality. And I don't know. I thought about that a lot after that. It was just, I was just standing there right close to that. If there was a missile in that silo, there may not have been, but the thought that there either had been or could be, or it was, after I thought about it for a while, it was just fun. I don't know. It was just made me stop and reflect. Miramar. That's what I was trying to think of. Thank you, John. I don't know if he was he might have been Coronado was what I was thinking of. I couldn't think of a minute ago, the NAS at Coronado, but I don't know if he was there, if he was at the Naval Sea Base. I'm not sure we know. I don't know if if my wife's mother would remember that or not. Brenda, if you're watching, Try to ask your mom that. See if she remembers which base your dad was actually based out of in California. I think he pretty much served his whole tour there in the mid-50s. I know he was out there at least 4 years. Oh, I would hope so, John. I'm sure you did. I hope everyone that's in that position takes it seriously, and I'm pretty sure they do. I was watching a few years ago, Discovery or the history when Discovery did real shows about discovery and science. It was either them or History Channel. I can't remember now for sure, but they did a story on naval vessels, and they spent some time on a nuclear submarine, and I don't remember which one it was now. And one of the things that I'll never forget was they were showing they were down in the submarine for a short period of time, and those guys are down there for several months. When they're on a cruise, they're down there. They may be on board for 6 months, and most of that, I think that's right, and most of that time they're spent underwater. So they were showing how different people, I guess, dealt with that and exercise. Of course, they had places to do that on the nuclear subs, quite large by submarine standards. And one of the things that impressed me was he interviewed a guy who was a runner. Well, there's not a lot of places to run on a submarine. So he ran laps around what they called Sherwood Forest, which was the missile silos or tubes that were inside the ship. The top of them, of course, went outside. If they launched, the top opens up and the missile comes out. And they're big. And they were in rows of 3 or 4 across, and then I can't remember how many in a row, a lot. And that was, I thought, wow, that is enough. I think a sub like that carries enough nuclear weapons to pretty much blow up the whole world by itself. And certainly one half of it. But just running past them every day, he ran laps around them to stay fit. And I never realized there were that many on a submarine. It seems like he worked, and that was his area of work, so he was down there all the time. Good morning, pass holder pair. Welcome in. I don't know which one we've got this morning. It'd be Val or John. I'm thinking John. Okay, I've lost Tina. You've lost me. Mike and Val. Did I say John? I meant Mike and Val. Pardon me, John. What do you mean, Tina? Oh, turrets. No, not on these. They were just silos. They pop out the top of the submarine. A door flies open or pops open, and the missile comes out. And I'm assuming they can close the door back, so they can. They can fire those things off underwater. So whatever pops open, I would think would close back. But her dad wasn't on that kind of sub. I think he might have still been on a diesel sub. Well, actually, he wasn't on the sub. He was on a sub a time or two, but he was on a sub tender, so he was actually on the surface. They would go to a place rendezvous with a sub to. In his case, maybe they were still using diesel subs in the 50s, so probably fueling them up and bringing supplies to them and that sort of thing. Because even in those days, they stayed out for a while. An atomic sub can, my understanding is, an atomic sub could just about stay under indefinitely if they didn't have to, eat and resupply with stuff like that, because their fuel supply, the power that runs that thing, I don't know, it got an almost infinite lifespan, and they can produce oxygen and water, pretty much everything they need to sustain life on board that thing, at least as long as it's working. And if anybody here is a submariner and wants to correct me, by all means do so. Although you probably wouldn't say because they're very secretive about that sort of thing. Okay, your dad was on a ship. He was too tall for subs. Yeah, that I've heard that. And I'd say that's probably true, especially when he would probably been in because they were probably still running a lot of diesel subs then too. They were smaller, definitely smaller. But I think that still stands true today. I think if you're too tall, that's inconvenient on a sub. Running through hatches, I'm surprised he didn't do that anyway, even on board ship. Well, I'm gonna tell on myself. I've got a dent, maybe under my headband. I think it's from running into stuff on airplanes, props, antenna, wing flaps. I knocked myself down several times by not ducking in the right spot or forgetting to duck. There used to be a scar. You could tell usually if somebody had worked on a particular group of airplanes because they had the aluminum material that the flaps are made of, where the flaps go up and down. The way they assembled it was riveted along the back, but they put little diamond shaped bends in the sheet metal to stiffen it up. That makes it stronger. And when you put two of them together, it makes like a diamond shape. And people would run into those flaps and they would have what they used to call a Cessna scar. See if I can figure out how my fingers go in this camera. And they just have a row. They might have a couple of diamonds permanently punched into their forehead from running into Cessna flaps. I think the worst thing, besides not a spinning propeller, but a propeller didn't give much. You ran into that thing, it hurt. But there was a guy ran in. There were some little short antennas. It looked like little shark fins that were on the belly of a lot of small planes or the planes we worked on. Well, big planes too, but you're not as likely to run into them on a large plane. That I ripped a guy's back open one time I was working with. I think he had to have stitches. Oh, he was there in that. Oh, well, he was in for a long time then. He served that long in the Navy and went to the Air Force. He was a glutton. Wow. 92. Well, congratulations to him. My dad made it to 90. And we lost my dad a year ago this week. And his birthday would have been Tuesday. And we were talking about this last night. I hate to say this. This was right when I injured my back last year. It was the 4th of July weekend. I want to say it was on the 5th because that was a Sunday. And that following week, Dad passed away. And I just about couldn't get there. They had to just about carry me up there so I could attend the funeral. But he made it to 90. He had a pretty good life, I think. My dad enjoyed life, that's for sure. He worked hard, and he taught me to work hard. But at the same time, he enjoyed himself. He played base softball and volleyball right up until he was in his 70s. He was on a senior Olympics team playing softball, maybe softball too, but playing volleyball, and I think they won state championship one year in Senior Olympics. But I don't know if they actually do a worldwide Senior Olympics. He didn't do that, but he loved to play baseball and then softball later in life. That was his. I have to think that was his favorite sport. The he actually played what they called back then semi-pro baseball. Not sure exactly how that worked, but he played for a small back when he was growing up. In the he would have been playing in the 40s, probably. Yeah, maybe even early 50s. Not sure when I'm not sure what years he played, but he played for a local team. They back then towns all over the country had little baseball teams, and I mean even for adults, and they played. Some of them are farm teams, what they call farm teams now. But uh, he played for Mossheim, and I think he went to Mossheim High School, so I know he played baseball there. So he may have played actually for Greenville, Tennessee, in semi-pro ball. Well, it's like I said, I'm not sure what that means. It probably means you work a job and then play a game certain nights a week. I don't know if he got paid. Maybe he did a little bit. I'm sure it wasn't much, but he did that for a while. And I think he probably did that up until he went to the military. And that, when he was in the Army during Korea, he blew his knee out. So that kind of ended that. I think it ended his military career. Well, maybe. I'm not sure about that. Since it was Korea, they may have kept him in for training purposes. But I slowed him down for a while. And then when he got out from that, like I said, he played softball up till he was 70. Well, Tina, a lot of people did that. I don't know what year that would have been, but I know during World War II, lots of young men lied or got people to fake their birth certificates so they could join up. I've had an uncle, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned here before, who went to war in World War II. I think he did volunteer. I'm not sure I don't know if he was drafted the first time around or not. Went to World War II, fought in the Battle of the Bulge in Europe. Think he fought in Italy. Yeah, I think he was part of the Italian campaign. Then he was in the Battle of the Bulge, and and then when they discharged most of the soldiers after World War II. I mean, they didn't want to keep that large of a standing army at that time, which I'm not sure how many millions of people were in it for the war. And but Korea rolled around, and he volunteered for that and went back in the army. Served in Korea. That's why I wish I could have talked to him more about that. And then he got out after Korea. He was out, and then Vietnam rolled around, and he tried to go to Vietnam. He wanted to sign up for that, but they said he was too old by that point. So that was the end of his military career, if you will. He had pictures, and I don't know what happened to these pictures. I remember my mom showing me a picture that had to do with my Uncle Afton on board a troop transport going into Korea. And they went in on the west side of Korea. I can't remember if that was Hufong, or I can't remember the name of that base where they went in, but that was one of the places the U.S. troops loaded into. And at some point during the Korean War, the North Koreans pushed pretty far down south into South Korea, what is now South Korea. And seems like that base area was one of the things that they had to use to kind of come back and push back up. Tina, I would definitely agree with you there. I think kids had a different perspective on. I'm not saying they were all not scared, but I think they were braver. I think they were more willing to sacrifice and put up with the hardships. But now they're not all that way today. But I know I've met quite a few that I'm not sure would have made it. I don't know. I think we might have been lucky that something like World War II happened when it did. In the respect that there were plenty of people ready to go and willing to make that kind of sacrifice. Interesting, Tina. Which base did he work on? Did he work on the same base for those 30 years? I'm just being nosy. Well, Carol, you know what? That sounds like Audie Murphy. Except he didn't actually finish school. And he joined really early. He was young. He got somebody to sign for him. Does anybody know that's well, good morning, Miss Pruitt. Everybody, welcome Brenda Pruitt into the chat. She is my lovely bride. We were talking family and genealogy and okay. Well, you're welcome to Ninja Watch or jump right in anytime if you can. You're probably busy, but your input would certainly be welcome. Brenda, since you're on here, I was going to say, if you ever think about it, do you remember where your dad was actually based in San Diego? There's a couple different places out there. Which naval base he was at? There's probably a lot of people did that too, Carol, I would imagine. Of course, there was a lot of people from this area moved up to Detroit area to during the war. I think World War II is credited for some of that huge migration from the north to the south. A lot of Brenda's family that lived in this area moved to Michigan during that time period. And okay, thank you, Brenda. Moved up there to find jobs, and worked in the different military factories. I knew one guy that went up there. He was the father of the guy that was teaching me to fly and got me into aviation. He talked about moving up there, and during the war, he put together airplanes for one of the companies up there that was building airplanes for the military. It was one of the car manufacturers that was doing it. Let's see what I've missed here in chat. I hope if I've missed anybody, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. That was impressive, Tina. That was quite the years to serve. And I don't know, that's often called the greatest generation, and I think probably they were right. My dad was 15 when the war was over, World War II. I mean, I'm sure he would have been in it if had it gone a little further, which thank goodness it didn't. Oops, did I put that in there? How did I do that? Tina? I mean, Carol, I don't know where that's at. There. Sorry about that. Well, I mean, not sorry, but I didn't mean to. I mean, that was kind of dated that you said that a few minutes ago. Hey, what, guys? I'm changing therapy after this week. I think it's really hurting me right now with my knees. Feels like it's swollen all the time, but my hips, especially my left one, is the thing that's really bothering me now. Yeah, my dad was too. He was too young for World War II, but he was actually in the National Guard. I don't know what year he joined, but he was in the National Guard, and they got called up for Korea. That's how he got involved in that conflict. I just had, I don't know if I can, let me see if I can pull it up. My wife, Brenda, was just up there. My by up there, I mean to Johnson City area. And she took some pictures. Let me see if I've got those pictures. Of their gravesite. I was going to show you the tombstone, but I don't know. I don't know if I have those here yet. I might have them right here. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but if you or your parents were in the military, you probably have burial rights at one of the national cemeteries. I didn't realize that until my mother passed away. Well, the other thing I didn't realize was that spouses can be also have those burial rights whether they served or not. Well, as some people say today, that if your spouse or loved one was in the war, then your wife, which at that time was more common, that the women, not as many women were serving, but they were, they served too. I think Mama Mouse, Yvonne Myers, has talked about that several times while Kelly was deployed in Europe and places where he went. She was, in many ways, she was serving at the same time. And I understand that. Anyway, I've lost track. That train pulled out before I was on it. So my mom was able to be buried at Mountain Home also, and they share a grave. Since Mom died first, she was buried, and they put up the atypical tombstone that's common for everything there. Everything has the same tombstones, the same. It's all very neat and clean, and it's pretty impressive. I mean, when you see it, everything's lined up perfectly, and everything's in a row, and it's just interesting. Interesting and very respectful, and but anyway, so Mom passed away first, and I didn't know this, but she was able to be buried there, which actually in the end saved us a lot of money. Hate to put it that way, but that's the truth. And then when Dad passed away last year, he was put in the same grave, and what they did then was they turned the tombstone around. So now his side is facing the front of the grave, and all his information, Korea and all that, and maybe units. I'm not sure if it's got the unit on it. And Mom's is facing to the rear, but they're both on the same stone, which I thought was very interesting. I didn't know they did that. No, Tina, I've never been to Arlington. I've spent some time at Mountain Home, which is a large national cemetery. And Mountain Home, if you ever look up Mountain Home Veterans Center, you'll see what I mean. It's both beautiful and haunting too. It's pretty good size. Now I don't know how it ranks amongst. I know it's much smaller than Arlington, but it's still very impressive. There's a lot of graves there. I've heard at one time, but I can't remember. And the person that served is on the. Yes, and actually, Brenda's mother and father will be the same way. Now her father passed away first, so he's already there. And but I assume her mother will be buried on top, with him. You can correct me, Brenda, since you're in here. But yeah, I agree, Tina. It's hey, Pearl. I'm glad to hear that, Pearl. Rumors. I didn't think if I'd realized I was going to live to be this old, I would have taken better care of myself. But I didn't think I'd be here. But here I am. So, but anyway, if you ever get a chance, I don't mean for this to sound morbid in any way, but cemeteries can be beautiful in their own way. Yes, they're haunting. I think if there's any spirituality to you at all, they've got to be. I suppose they can be spooky if you are bent that direction. What fascinates me, but we love to go to old cemeteries and look around. My job used to entail me going up in the part of the mountains and the hills and stuff of where I was working, and that country was all, there were homesteads, houses, people lived all over the place, and they had cemeteries. So when the TVA moved in, they relocated those people, moved them into new houses, different places. But the cemeteries oftentimes are still there. If they were going to be flooded by the reservoir, then they moved them. But if they weren't going to be flooded, they didn't always move them. They left the cemeteries on federal property. So they're somewhat protected. We didn't maintain each and every cemetery, but there are literally dozens, if not hundreds, of small cemeteries scattered around some of these old mountain reservoirs because people have been here for a long time. And every once in a while, you'd stumble across one that nobody knew about. What always fascinated me about some of them, well, you had a dichotomy. You either had somebody who was buried under a fieldstone, which is just a flat rock they dug up out here in the garden, or plowing the fields. And sometimes they had scratchings on them. Sometimes they actually had some chisel marks where they put somebody's name. Sometimes they had nothing. They're just bare stones, but they're standing up in the ground or laying flat, and it's a cemetery. And the dichotomous part of that was maybe a row over, you've got somebody that's buried with this great big monument. And I think there was a time period when people that had the means, I guess, really wanted to be known when they were dead. I've seen some of the most impressive tombstones and grave markers in old cemeteries. I just find it hard to believe that people went to that kind of trouble. Okay, I got to catch up on chat here. Tombstone business is probably a pretty good business all in all. I mean, it's not something that has gone away. Yeah, I mean, people had their own cemeteries. They had family cemeteries. Immediate families sometimes had cemeteries on their back lots if they had enough land. Or they might have if there was a lot of them in a given area that belonged to the same family or same group, they might have a common cemetery nearby. I went in. Our policy at TVA was if someone had if Carol came in and said, my great grandfather is buried somewhere on TVA on property, we think it's on TVA property. If we knew where that cemetery was, we could tell them, or they could find it, and they were welcome to clean it up. But we didn't want people going in and disturbing them. We didn't want people going in and grave robbing, that sort of thing. Not that there'd be anything in the graves around there. That dirt poor then, dirt poor now for the most part. But they could clean them up and take care of the cemetery. Some cemeteries were elaborate enough they had fences around them. Some still do. Some are small and maybe have 2 or 3 graves in them. We were working in an area one summer where we were kind of clearing off some brush to do some planting, putting in native grasses and that sort of things in a field area that at one time had been an ag field. And the guy with the bulldozer that was moving stuff around for us hit something, and he thought it was a tree stump, and it turned out to be a grave marker that nobody knew was there. It was just grown up to as much as it could be, and I'm not sure it was on any of our maps, which was pretty unusual because they surveyed that country very well before, when we bought it, or I say bought it. Some people would say took it, but they did pay for it. But they stopped and marked it and made sure nobody else would run into it. So they, I mean, they were just everywhere, and you just never know. I was walking a piece of property one day, and I just happened to look down. Well, I saw this big rock, I guess, and I looked down, and it's a piece of marble that's about the size of a dinner table, maybe half the size of a dining room table, square. And you could tell how it was cut out of the rock. It had been drilled because the edges looked like, paper you tear out of a ring notebook, this little dot, edges with half holes. Excuse me, that's how it looked. And I got to looking at it and mopped it off, and there's a whole bunch of stuff chiseled into it, actually pretty well and pretty legible. And the guy had been a Civil War veteran, and they had his name and a whole bunch of other stuff on there. And there it was, laying on the top of this ridge, looking out over half the lake. And I don't think it was marked on anything. I'm pretty sure I came back and found out that was an unmarked cemetery. And it was just, as far as I know, it was just one person there. But it had a big stone. That wasn't standing up, it was laying flat. So it was a little different. But, we found stuff like that occasionally. Let's see here. Let me highlight a couple of things. Hey, Dave. You're driving to Michigan. Well, good luck. Good for you. Be safe up there. Where are you going in Michigan, Dave, if you have time to say? Let me see what John's trying to say here. My father's from Kingston, New York. Wow, that's cool. That's why this journey started out me talking about my wife's family. She came down last night. I'm sure she can add to this, but she found, well, I did mention that. She has family in the Plymouth area from the 1600s, and I'm pretty sure that she's probably going to find it, some where they came over from England, either with the Pilgrims or after the Pilgrims, so to speak, and or the initial anyway, and probably be able to check where at least some of her ancestors came over here from that area. She knows that she's got family in her ancestral line goes to. That goes into, oh, that's weird. Hang on a minute. Okay, that's better. Scotland and England and Ireland. And it seems like most of my folks came from Ireland, or at least part of my family. I have German that came over too, mom's side, but in Mediterranean, not sure where all they came from, but I had some Welsh. I'm not sure. We're still arguing about whether I had Scottish ancestry or not, but I definitely have Irish ancestry, and not too far back actually. And I have Welsh ancestry, which is, I think it's kind of cool because the Welsh were great archers, known to be the archers of a lot of times in the English armies, at least. And they were great bowmen and were often used in the archery corps, which England used to, the longbow was kind of one of the first really accurate long range weapons, if you will, for military. Let's see here. I asked Dave a question. I don't know if he had a chance to answer it or not. Okay, Dave. I don't know where that's at personally, but I bet some of them do. Some folks in here do. Dave, is that where you're from originally? I don't know how long you've been in Florida. I think you're in Florida. Pretty sure you're in Florida. Well, okay, that's interesting. I was trying to get hooked up with Robert de Bruce. I can't say it. Robert de Bruce in Scotland, but I don't think I can. So far, I haven't anyway. I want to wear a kilt. So I'm trying to get. I want to be tied in with the Scottish, so I can. I'm going to say legally. It's not really a legal thing, but I want to wear the right tartan, the right, and I can wear an Irish. There's Irish kilts, and I have looked that up, and I could wear an Irish kilt, but it's a little different. Hey, Cherie, you know what? I know you've been in here. You've been quiet, so I'm glad you're still here. Well, actually, you may have had to go back to work by now. Oh my goodness. Long lost relatives here. Tina McNeil, meet your long lost cousin, Kay Atwood. Heck, truth be known, we're probably all kin somewhere back there. That tree got smaller and less roots the further back you go. They all kind of funneled in the same parts of the world country. But my part of my Irish ancestry just moved over here in the late 1800s. Well, at the end of the potato famine period, which is in the early 1850s. So that side of my family's only been here. Well, I started saying 100 years, but that's not true anymore, is it? 150 years. Well, that's cool, Carol. Do you have any idea why they decided to name him after Robert the Bruce? You think we're all related, Tina? I think here's what Brenda and I are afraid of. The further back she traces, the more common her names are. So I think we're going to find out we're related. Everybody used to say we looked alike when we were younger. We always just kind of wrote it off as being, like your dogs. You start looking like each other after a while, or your dog starts looking like you. In this case, let me make something clear. I would be the dog. She would be the person. But, she keeps coming up with names that match my ancestral line. So sooner or later, we're going to find we got common ancestors. I'm pretty sure. Oh, 1920. Wow, that's not very long ago at all, Carol. You too, Cherie. I hope the rest of your day goes well. I hope they don't work you too hard. And hopefully you'll get home soon, or won't be the rest of the day will go by fast and you'll get home and get to rest. And I hope you don't have to work tomorrow. You need some time off. Sorry about the headache. We'll be thinking about you. I do hope you have a better rest of the day. Yes, Pearl. That's what's the problem with me. I keep thinking, I was just born in 57. Hell, that was the last century. I mean, that's a long time ago now. They met in Detroit. Were they both Scottish? Would that be too unusual, Carol, that they think they both might have been from Scotland? Oh my. Okay. Well, I hope you have a good day, and the next couple of days go well for you, Cherie. We're always thinking about you, so take care. I have to. What did Brenda say? She left out a word. I think what Brenda's trying to say is we've been together since we were 14. Pretty much. Wow, that's amazing, Carol, that they came here and at that time period and then met each other on this continent as big as it is especially compared to Scotland, and got married. That's amazing. Edinburgh and Glasgow. I think, well, I don't know. I'm not sure why I'd have to say. I think it would be cool to have some Scottish lineage, but we'll see. I think the other part of me is probably pirate. And I still believe, I don't know if any of you'll know what I'm talking about, but I still believe that my mother's side of the family has some Melungeon lineage, which is a group of people that mostly live in Tennessee. At least I think the largest portion of them were in Tennessee or are still. And they're kind of I don't say a mystery race of people, but they were kind of a mysterious people that showed up here and nobody really knew where all they came from. And most people think they were early settlers that probably landed from other countries that aren't really mentioned in the history books, like Portuguese, people from the Mediterranean area that may be pirates. I don't know where all they, but they're kind of a mixed race of people or group of people, and they tend to have darker skin. Sometimes they darker hair. A lot of them are, like I said, a lot of them are from East Tennessee. The Sneedville area of Tennessee has a lot of Melungeon people. And I still think my mom's side and the reason I think that is they had all the characteristics. Jet black hair when they were younger, olive complexion. My mom, if you've ever seen a picture of my mom, she was just kind of brown all the time. I mean, to some degree, she tanned real easily. She rarely ever burned. I'm the same way. Now I got browner hair. I don't have the jet black hair. I guess I got that more from my dad. Of course, I got my dad's blue eyes too, and I'm not sure that they have blue eyes, but the skin thing and all my uncles they looked Italian or like they were from that part of the world, and there is enough Mediterranean DNA in our system. I think that there's some of that in there. I haven't proven it, but oh, that's good, Sherry. I'm glad you're not in shoes. I know you do not like the shoe area. What is, Brenda? You have to add more to your sentences. I can't keep up. What has she said? I want to make sure this is good conversation, so I want to make sure I'm keeping up. Brenda, if you're using voice to text, you need to make sure you get all your words in there. I'm not complaining. I just know sometimes that happens. Hey, John, thanks for coming in, buddy. Go talk to your dad. That's good. I'm glad he's up to speed on the technology. That's great. I always wish mine had. I always wanted to get mine some kind of a device where we could do that, but I don't think they ever would have figured it out. Even though my dad was pretty sharp at that kind of stuff, by that time he wasn't quite as active. Oh, clan mixing, yeah, but she holds that over my head. She can prove her Scottish ancestry, but for some reason she keeps saying. One day she came down here and told me she proved I had Scottish ancestry. She denies that, but now she says I don't. So she's bragging. She's got 4 tartans. I have none. She knows that makes me mad. I have to have some Scottish in me somewhere. I like swords and knives too much. See you, John. Have a good. If I don't talk to you anymore, have a great 4th of July. At least have a relaxing weekend, I hope. I don't know what it's like to have to work on the 4th. I used to have to a lot, but when I was younger, I didn't know any better. I just, that was what I had to do. Well, that's cool. How many of you in here can? Okay, I'm going to have to say I haven't, and I'm drawing a blank for a moment here. I know you mentioned that, and I need to write that down right now so I don't forget it again, because obviously I have. I should be writing more stuff down. I mean, as I've mentioned, the train left the station 2 or 3 times today. Yeah, it's nice to have Scottish background. Yeah. I also like Scotch whiskey. She doesn't drink, so she can't even appreciate water of the water of life, as the Scots call it. Carol. She may be barefoot. I mean, she's in near the beach in South Carolina, but I don't think that's what she meant. Okay, I'm apologizing greatly, profusely for not remembering. Like I said, I've written that down. If you can either send me something on Instagram, or you're welcome to tell me here, embarrass me in front of everybody, which is fine. I need that sometimes. Oh, Brenda can tell you where her folks were at in Scotland. I've written it down before, but I couldn't tell you right now either. I don't know how much you guys surf around on like Instagram, but there's a young lady. I say young, I have no idea what her age is. That's Scottish. That's on Instagram. Her name is Natty Dread, Dredd is what, and her Instagram name is just run together, Natty Dread, NATIDREDD, I think. And she spit an image of Merida from Brave. I mean, I swear she's got the hair for it. She's everything. She's a musician, and I've listened. That's how I learned about her. I found her music and was listening to it. And she's doing a live concert, but she's got the great Scottish accent. And one of the favorite things she talks about on the air sometimes is coos. And nobody could figure out what she was talking about for the longest time. And she's talking about cows. When she says cow, it comes out coo. And I can't even begin to imitate it, but check her out sometime. If you like Scottish music and singing and that sort of thing, check her out sometime. I'm not, let's pay no free advertisement here. I'm just, I like her singing. I like her voice and her singing, and I like old Scottish folk songs and Irish folk songs and things like that. So, well, it's Pearl. So I'm not awake yet. So why your hands hurt when your barefoot is puzzling. Pearl, I bet you know. I'm going to bet you know this, but you may not. Are you familiar with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, the original story by? No, I can't remember that. But they talk about a whole race of people on a planet somewhere. I can't remember the name of the planet where they made shoes. That was their whole thing, was shoes. But they didn't make them so that they didn't really fit. So they always hurt. So people had to come back and buy another pair. Their whole life revolved around buying shoes, basically. Brenda Pruitt. We have 3 different clans on Dad's side and at least one on my mom's side. Plus Native Americans on both sides. I wish I had that too. I can't prove that. Brenda, we still believe Brenda has Native American on her side of her family. Her grandmother. That's one thing we did get to talk about, was she showed me a lot of pictures. They're from Oklahoma. And of course, there were Sooners in Oklahoma, as everybody knows, but it was also the Indian territories at one time. And there was a lot of native tribes that were moved into Oklahoma against their will that lived there. That's probably be a topic for another day. But that's where her grandparents, great grandparents were from. And she had, and I don't know if we have, photographs of those folks. And if they looked, I mean, you could look at their images and they look just like images of the Native Americans that were on the reservation that you see that were taken by somebody like, wow, my mind is just toast this morning. Edwards, I can't think of his whole name. He did photographed a lot of Native Americans towards the end of, I don't know what to call that period. I don't want to call it the Indian Wars. I don't know a good name to call it, but anyway, as most of that stuff settled down, and the Indians were unfortunately, all put on reservations or whatever. But that's another, like I said, another topic. But she swore they were Native Americans, even though they denied it, which wasn't unusual back then to deny that, because people didn't think that it was good to be mixed. So they did. I mean, they had all the skin coloration, high cheekbones, dark hair, but we've not been able to prove that. So I don't know. I guess it's not true. Pearl, I hope it's cooled down out there now. Has it? I heard it was supposed to. You guys got cooked. I think, I don't know, Carol, did you guys get 100-degree weather too? Because I'm pretty sure Edward Curtis. Thank you, Kay. That is who I'm thinking of. Like I said, my mind's not awake, Pearl. I mean, I just still too asleep to recognize it. But yeah, I was hoping Pearl was, you guys, I was thinking I heard it started to cool down a little bit, but you guys probably, those had to be record highs if you guys have ever been that high. It was unbelievable. And I don't know, some of you New York people got up in the hundreds too, I think. We were pretty hot, but I don't think we got quite that hot, which is not too unusual. We've had, we're not Phoenix or anything, but we have had, I remember a month one time when it was over 100 every day. Whew, God, it's hot and muggy. When it gets like that, it's just about unbearable here. Florida's that way too. It's just so muggy. Kay, are you so you're familiar with Edward Curtis and his work? I would love to have a copy of his photo albums. I'm sure to get one today would be more money than I'll ever have, but because there's not that many of them out there, originals, and I don't know if anybody's ever reproduced the whole things or not. That's what I thought, Carol, or not Carol, Pearl. I knew you'd been over 100, and I knew you guys weren't used to that. It's so wet out there. Is it normally fairly high humidity even when it's normal? You're saying it's 82 and 95%, which sounds like our weather, to be honest. It gets that way a lot here. The humidity is always really high, and temperatures get in the mid to upper 90s in the summertime, at least for a few weeks of the summer. Okay, well, he did some amazing work. He decided that he wanted to try to capture the Native Americans as closely as he could to their native dress and habitat, if you will, and the way they lived before it was too late. And he did a pretty good job of that. His photography, I think, was very important. I'm glad somebody did it. That's what I thought, Pearl. I wasn't sure. I knew you guys had a lot of rain and I guess misty weather and foggy maybe, but I didn't think their humidity was as bad as it is back here or in this part of the world. That's one thing I'm almost surprised I do still live here, because it's the heat and the mugginess, the humidity. Just I struggle with it. I always have, but I really do now. Well, that's true, Kay. There are. I've seen his work in other things, and he gets credit for them. I think somebody did a documentary about him too on probably a TV channel, History, A&E or Discovery Channel. Like I said, back when they did that kind of stuff, not reality shows and that sort of thing. But It might even have been PBS, because in my mind I hear Peter Coyote or somebody like that doing the narration. And he was certainly an interesting guy. And he did a lot of other kind of photography too, but that's the thing I remember about him. Yeah, most people have heard of Ansel Adams. Remember that one. And his work and his photography was amazing, beautiful too. A little bit different, but he certainly did capture a lot of things that I'm glad he got before it's too late. Although, fortunately, probably thanks to him and some others, a lot of areas he photographed, and not all, but a lot of them have been preserved and kept, I guess, because people wanted to keep them that way. Let's see. Well, I've got 10 likes this morning. That's better than 0. No thumbs down yet. I probably should start doing more to promote my channel. I saw something the other day that said the best way to get people to sign up and subscribe and hit that button is if you remind them right when your show starts. I always forget to do that. I'm not really in a race with anybody to try to build up numbers and that kind of stuff. I just want to talk to folks and talk about things, and which will bring up another topic in a moment. But if you haven't, if you don't mind, if you would check out, I don't have a lot of videos to check out. Most of my videos are like this one, live streams where we talk about just a little bit of everything. But, check it out. And if you aren't too put off or you enjoy anything we've discussed, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. And when we're on Saturday mornings, you'll see us. Which brings me to another topic. Well, that's cool, Kay. I'd like to have some of his stuff. I've got some books that have some of his stuff in it. I would love to buy some of his prints, which I don't know now. Maybe, they're always reproducing stuff like that, at least from time to time. You can probably get those relatively inexpensively, but it seems like his family has gotten a lot of that tied up though. So they still seems like they still control a fair bit of his art. But he did some amazing stuff, and if you ever saw it work, he carried a big graphics type camera, the big wooden box looking thing, and the tripod. It's huge. Put a curtain, blackout sheet over his head so he could focus and adjust it to where he wanted everything. And he carried that equipment. As far as I know, he carried it all up and down those mountains to take a lot of those pictures himself. So, he gets a lot of respect from me. Of course, Curtis had to do the same things, but back then that was all he did have. And Ansel Adams actually could have used smaller equipment. There was more modern photography out there, but not if you wanted to take those kind of large images that could be so grain free and focused and clear. You pretty much have to go to that size to get the quality he was getting, which is pretty amazing. I lost something. There it is. Somebody can explain to me. I always have to, when I'm in a chat, I always have to make sure I'm in live chat and not top chat. And there seemed to be a way to change that. If anybody knows how, let me know. Because a lot of times I'll forget and people will be talking about something and I can't figure out what. It's because it's not popping up in top chat. I'm not sure how they figure that out, but maybe if they see me saying something, they know it's not top chat, so they just, not worth hearing, so they put it out there. I don't know. So I'm thinking about doing something else. I don't know. Some of you know that I ride motorcycles, and I've ridden motorcycles. Let me see what Kay's saying here first before I go on to that. Well, you know what, Kay, I felt the same way. I mean, when digital first came out, I didn't like it. I didn't like what you could do with it, as in manipulate images. You could make a lot of ho hum images look pretty dramatic, maybe even amazing. I felt like it was going to take a lot of the photographic knowledge away or talent. And I think it did that to a degree. It may have evened out some now, because people figured out to do really good photography, you still have to be pretty good at what you do. I mean, I can't look at something like, Shelley's Star Walker does. Shelley's does some amazing photography, and it's all digital. And I don't think she's going in and manipulating the images much. Okay, he may not. I mean, in many ways, I still haven't. In some ways, I have. I mean, I just know what people can do with things like Photoshop and that sort of stuff. And if they want to really, there was a lot of debate about that. And I used to keep up with stuff like this, but there was a lot of debate in the, I guess, early to mid 90s when digital was first coming on, about whether digital photography was even should be in the same class as the old style photography on film and all that, because it did take a lot more to focus. Most of the time you had to focus yourself. You had choice of your settings, which you can on a lot of automatic cameras too, but most people don't bother. But there was a lot of debate about if you saw an image on a magazine cover, was it even a real image, or was it just all made up from, graphic pieces, bits and pieces from other things, other people. It was a huge debate there for a while, so I'm sure he fit right into that. And honestly, I was on that side too for a long time. I think one of the things that sort of turned me around was I realized I could take so many more. In my case, I could take a lot more images. I'm an old style photographer, and what I mean by that is when I take pictures, I take a lot of pictures. I try to adjust the exposure up and down. I try different things. And so I might end up with 10 pictures of the same thing. And when you're shooting film, that's usually at least half a roll, if not more. And you end up having to go through a lot of film to do that. With a digital camera, you can usually get several hundred at best, at least, onto one card, and you can just keep shooting. Or you can carry a dozen cards and not take up as much space as a single roll of film. So in a way, I kind of got started doing it that way, and that's kind of stuck with me. But I can't say I'm a great digital photographer. I don't know how to use the software like a lot of people do. I have messed with Photoshop just a little bit. I wish I knew how to use it better. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to go in and manipulate my photos to be something they're not. Which is still part of the old school thought, I guess. And I don't know. It's an old debate. It's probably going to go on forever. Hey, Jason Udo, welcome in. Now, you're here. Does that mean your better half left us? I don't know if she said anything lately or not. Joy, I don't know if she's still in here or not, but welcome. Good to see you. Yeah, Carol, I didn't say bye to you last night. I apologize to everybody. I don't know, some of you know this, some of you don't, but I've been kind of off my game for a week or so. I just got a little frustrated last week about some of the YouTube stuff that, probably got my own situation. There's a tendency to get me down sometimes, and then I take it out on everything else. So I wasn't really online. I've not been online a lot this week, and I have to admit I regret that. I mean, I really enjoy being on people's streams, and I like to support them. And I know a lot of the people that I do that can't always be here because it's too early in the morning for people on the West Coast usually. Pearl's here right now, and I know it's still early for her. So I'm always honored when she can make it. Which Corky, Carol, which chat are you talking about now? I'm guessing by Garlic Phone you might mean the Monarchs. Or do you mean something else entirely? And if you, I know you were in Monarch Moments chat last night. Or did they? How did the chicken feet go over? I gotta ask. Sorry. Thanks, Brenda, from Captain Obvious. Or, well, yeah, he should be a captain. I did not know until last night that shawarma was the meat and how it was prepared more than it was something else. I didn't realize that till that meat you see if you go into a gyro shop or get hero shop, that's the shawarma. That's a preparation method and seasoning and whatnot. Oh, it was on Discord. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I have to admit I've not been involved in Discord much either. I just decided I had enough stuff without adding another. I've got it on here, and it beeps all the time, and I do try to look at it at least a couple times a day, but I have not been participating as much as I should. And I lost weight. I lost a lot of weight in the beginning, and then I gained some of it back. And I know I'm sitting here eating a biscuit, but this is like my bread allotment for the week, and it's sort of a treat on Saturday mornings. But I'd lost 11 pounds, and I've gained 4 or 5 of it back now, so I got to get back serious again. Hey, chicken feet's not a thing in the South, at least not in my part of the South, maybe South Vietnam or Southern China, but I've never known anybody to eat chicken feet. Pig's feet, now they do, but I never have. But okay, Jay, I'm not sure how to take that. You're looking pretty good too, brother. Are you hitting on me? I'm kidding, of course. A gamer, is that what goes? I mean, is that what Discord's used for a lot? I may have to get more involved. Didn't know there were gamers. I mean, there was games or something going on. Maybe that's true. I just never have known anybody. I mean, I have seen it in Chinese restaurants and things, but I've never really known people to eat chicken feet. I know it's common and maybe even a delicacy in some parts of the world, but, I just wasn't, I don't know. I just wasn't sure about that. And she cooked them in the Instapot. Yeah. Jonathan Chong said that his family sometimes ate it as part of dim sum, but I mean, here's the thing. What do you eat? I mean, most chicken feet I know of that I've ever had to deal with in my life had nothing on them but tough skin and bones. I mean, I do realize there's a muscular system in there. You can't bend your toes, but I'm not going to speak on that, Jay. I may not to where I'd eat the feet anyway. What did Brenda say? Oh, pickles, pig's feet. Ugh. Did he eat them, Carol? I mean, I'm guessing he didn't keep them there to look at. That's you used to be able to walk into a country store and there'd be a big jar of pickles, pig feet sitting on the counter. I never ate them. I don't know if anybody in my family did. Now they may have at one time. My mother and dad didn't, and we never had them in the house. I know some people that just absolutely love them. I used to work with a guy. He just thought pickles, pig feet were the best things ever. I used to, and they've got a lot more meat, but they've got. I will say this though about pig's feet, they've got more meat on them than a chicken foot. You don't eat the. I think they peel the hooves off, Jay, and I mean you see the toes, if you will, but hooves are kind of like fingernails; they can be removed. That's what I remember seeing anyway. You wouldn't be able to eat the hoof. Even if it's soaked in vinegar for 10 years, I don't think you could eat the hoof. It softens up, and they will come off if you cook them. And I'm not even sure how you prepare pig's feet. I'll have to look. Brenda, that's your next job. Look up how you prepare pig's feet to pickle. We could make a real tongue twister out of this. But I also know what pigs walk in. So, I'm not sure I could get past that. Hoodoo, voodoo. Oh, hoodoo, voodoo K. What did K say? I thought this feet was used as flavoring or some type of voodoo. They certainly do them. I certainly see them on TV and movies when they're doing voodoo. There's always some kind of chicken feet involved. They're usually dried up and, look like this. They're Well, in China, and then you could say they're eating this from squeal to. When they used to say that, eating the pig squeal to tail or something like that. No, I believe that, Carol. I mean, I would think they would, because I can't imagine them having much flavor. But like I said, I can't imagine there being much there to eat. I mean, they just don't. I've held a few chickens and seen them butchered a few times, and I've had other birds in my hands, and most of the time the feet are just whatever muscles are under there, which I realize is the meat, but there's not much there. I mean, I'm talking about a millimeter of. It just doesn't seem like there's anything there to me. Looks to me like you're just eating skin, which sounds very chewy and unappetizing, but I don't know. I've never eaten them. I wasn't quite sure I can't remember what Michelle said got her on that idea. Well, that was at least the skin off stuff like, thighs and breast meat and chicken legs, not chicken feet. Okay, Kay, what is that? What are those little emojis? Oh, musical notes. Okay. I couldn't figure that out for a minute. Bye, Joy. Enjoy your hair cutting or whatever you're having done. It's a Saturday morning, and that one thing my mother did on a regular basis was get her hair fixed on Saturdays for always getting ready for church, on Sunday. So every Saturday morning she had a standing appointment with down at the, as they used to say in joking, down our booty shop. And that was just a gathering And I used to get my hair cut at the same place. Actually, they did both. They started this woman had started a beauty salon, if you will, that we used to call them, in her garage or basement. And eventually, as her daughters got older, they joined her. So it was a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter. There was 3 generations in there with chairs, and they were kind of family friends. And in fact, I delivered newspapers to them for years. And at that time, their dad had a auto body shop, and they were good at cutting hair, and he was good at fixing cars. And but for years, that's where I got my hair cut there. We used to go back to Johnson City from time to time, and when I was up there, I'd get my hair cut. Okay, Jay, I'm not sure. Oh, you can't. Can anybody else hear me? Brenda, you're close by. Can you hear me okay? Jay, did it just start or has it been that way? Must be you, Jay. I don't know what happened. But, oh, you hear me now? Okay. I don't want to replay that. I wouldn't want you to miss anything. I mean, you never know what's going to come out of my mouth. Probably nothing that's going to, make you any money or anything. Okay, you said you were just going to listen, but I'm glad you've been able to actively participate. That's been good. I can't say there's any real wisdom coming forth, but you never know. I might luck out. I might say something you can use someday on somebody, or use it on somebody else, and hopefully not bring it back and use it against me. That's possible too. So anyway, I was going back. Let me go back to where I was. I think I started down this track. I've been thinking about doing another show. Most of you know I think you've heard me say that one of my goals when I get back to where I can walk again properly and I use my lower extremities, that I want to get back on my motorcycle, which is one of the things that I miss immeasurably. I can't even begin to tell you how much. And okay, Tim, it was your mom. Yes, it was Charlotte and my mom. My mom's best friend for at least 30 years, maybe 40 some. I'm not sure exactly. They moved in beside my mom and dad when I was in probably 3rd or 4th grade. And they lived close together for the next, I don't know how many years. And they were thick as thieves, especially her and Charlotte. But they went to ball games together. They got their hair done together. They were just connected. Yeah, the only thing they didn't do was go to the same church. You're right there. Charlotte and Ted were Presbyterian. Mom and Dad were Methodist, so they went to different churches. But they certainly did everything else together. That makes sense, Jay. That happens to me sometimes. I've had my phone do that. My phone will connect. I've got a light out in the garage, which actually doesn't work now, but it's got a Bluetooth connection and speakers. I used to be able to hook my phone to it and listen to music when I was working on my bikes and stuff in the garage. And sometimes it'll get turned on, that light will get turned on, and that speaker comes on, and I don't realize it, and it connects to my phone. So I'm sitting here trying to hear something on my phone, and it won't play. I can't figure out what the heck's going on, and finally figure out it's Bluetooth. Let's see here. So anyway, since I've not, one of the reasons I wanted to get on YouTube before I even knew about this amazing, community and Disney community and everything that goes along with that, and all these other fine people that do so many other wonderful things, was I wanted to get on to do videos about motorcycle travel. And I've been wanting to do something like that for 15 or 20 years. And I did it a little bit. I used to maintain the website for the motorcycle club I belonged to. That was a local group. And that was one outlet. I tried to expand that and do more with that till I got to the point where I was, ouch, I got a big splinter in my thumb. Didn't even know it was there. Miss Brenda, we'll have to take care of that in a little bit. Because it's not sure I can, my hand won't bend that way. So I've been wanting to do that for a while. And the other night I got to thinking about it, and there is a group, local group, that meets at a place downtown, Knoxville, called the Time Warp Tea Room. And the tea room has been, Brenda has a question for anybody that's living out west, and I think the answer to that mostly is no, but anyone that knows can answer, please. But they primarily, so this guy opened this tea room, which was kind of like a sandwich store, some coffee shop tea, no alcohol. He didn't go that route. And he might have hot dogs or something one night, or have a barbecue truck come up and, be doing barbecue sandwiches. But he was an old motorcyclist too, and he had some antique bikes. So he kind of got started, but he put these bikes in his windows. A storefront. He had an old, I don't know what the store was years ago, but I'm sure it's some kind of business, because where it's at in Knoxville was a busy part of town at one time with small businesses and that sort of thing. So when he bought this building or got involved, he opened this up and he covered the walls. The walls are wallpapered in, there used to be a newspaper style weekly or bi-weekly periodical that was more like a newspaper. I mean, it was on newsprint. It was kind of like a combination magazine newspaper, and it was called Cycle, not Cycle World. That was a magazine, Cycle News. And it was about anything to do with motorcycle racing, pretty much all over the world, and just other stuff. And he had collected those, I guess, over years of his life. I knew a lot of people that had them. I had some for a while, but I don't have any now. But he took those and he papered the walls with them. So his wallpaper was made out of these Cycle News. And you could sit there and read an article, that you might not have seen in 50 years. And then he had some old gas tanks that were kind of neat looking that he had sitting around the shop. And I mean, he had definitely had a motorcycle theme. So, of course, it attracted that same kind of a crowd, and vintage motorcycles in particular. So they started a club, a vintage motorcycle club there out of the tea room, and they meet down there pretty much every Tuesday night. And there's a pretty good crowd. I mean, sometimes there's a pretty good crowd down there. A lot of the same guys, but a lot of those guys, and I know a lot of them, I mean, they travel. I mean, they go places all over the country. They do a lot of miles every year. They really travel. They've been, I mean, I know at least 2 or 3 of them have ridden to, the Arctic Circle on their motorcycles and back, and down into Mexico and back. And I know one guy, at least in particular, has done what they used to call the Iron Butt Rally, which is basically 11,000 miles in 10 days. And it's not unusual for somebody to ride the perimeter of the United States in that amount of time. But sometimes if you take an alternate route and go all the way up into Alaska, you get bonus points. It's a thing. But anyway, I thought I might sit down with some of those folks if they were willing and do stories. Just get some stories from those guys and see if I couldn't do something with that on the internet. Haven't decided yet if I want to vlog it or do a podcast or do it live, which would be my preference if I can get, if they're willing. And, but then I also heard that since COVID and everything, the guys had a rough time, of course, surviving. I mean, I'm sure for months he had no business, since everything was shut down. So I'm hoping he's not going to close up his shop. He's not open a lot now. I know Tuesday nights are about maybe his biggest night, since that's when the bike guys show up. Motorcyclists. I don't use the term bikers very often, because that's I don't consider myself a biker, because biker tends to have a different connotation and different meaning for a lot of people. But if you ride a motorcycle, you know what I mean. I mean, what's a pretty good crowd? I've seen 50 people down there, maybe a little bit more on some nights. A couple of years ago, when I was going more regularly, he would have the inside of the store would be the shop, or the diner would be full, a cafe, tea room, whatever. And then he has a large deck on the back, and then I've seen people in the back parking lot milling about. And the Vintage Motorcycle Club would often put on everybody bring your oldest thing downtown, and to be a member of the club, you have to have something that's at least 25 years old, I think, or at least that's the preference. I don't think you have to have one. I used to have, I don't now. I almost do. Now that I think about it. But so they can draw anywhere from 10 to 50 people. I don't know right now how many. I've not been able to go in a while, so I'm not sure. I'm going to try to get down there. I'll have to go in a car, unfortunately, and be dropped off. But I'm going to try to go down and see him one day this week, or next few days, or at least Tuesday night, and see if he's interested. If I can get him to, if he's interested and wants to do it. If I could help his business any, that would be great. I didn't go about it doing it for that. It's certainly not a charity thing, but if it helped him out a little bit, if he got some more attention, if I could get a crowd enough to, listen, that would draw some more people for him, then that would be amazing. And I would love that. And I'm not looking to do anything. I'm not looking to get anything out of it other than getting to do what I originally wanted to do, which was talk about motorcycle travel. And one of the things I wanted to do. That wasn't the only thing I ever wanted to do. I mean, I'll have to admit, it was always kind of a struggle between that and Disney, but I just think that would be fun if I can put it together. So I'm thinking about doing that, and maybe in the next week or two, I'll know for sure, because I've got to figure out, if he says yes, then I've got to figure out what kind of lighting I need to be able to take with me. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about a camera, how that'll work. I do have a laptop that I think is up to snuff to use to do this, new enough. I don't know if I'd shoot with my phone or shoot with the camera. That's the things I got to figure out. But I've got a good microphone here. I wouldn't need a microphone. I just have to pack this one up. It's got an omnidirectional mode, so I could talk to somebody across the table and you can hear them fine. And it works pretty well. And I'm going to be looking for a name for the show if I get there. I've got a couple ideas already, but when I get a little bit more, if I find out it might happen, then I may throw that out there and, get people's opinions. I realize you guys may not be motorcyclists, and that may not mean anything to you, or you may be, I don't want to say haters, but you may not like them. But anyway, that's just something I'm thinking about doing. I'm working on it. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think I could get some really interesting stories. I've heard plenty of stories from guys like that over the years. Some are hilarious in one way and not so funny in others. For example, I used to work with a guy who had like BMWs, and he had some old ones, and he used to travel out to, there's at least one big national BMW rally every year. Well, there's all kinds of rallies around the country every year, which is basically just people get together and ride and, chat and, just meet each other or get to see somebody you hadn't seen in a year. But there's also a national rally with the BMW Owners Association. And this guy was talking about going to one of those events, and lots of people there, and they were all sitting around the fire one night swapping stories. And this one guy got a little bit too deep into his cups and whatever they were drinking was flammable, so it wasn't a beer. No, that's not correct. They were all sitting around there drinking, and some reason he got the idea that it'd be fun to throw a little gas on the fire once in a while just for the, flame up. And so what he was doing was going over to his motorcycle, and he pulled the fuel hose off, and he was draining a little bit out of the fuel tank, and then carry it over in a cup and throw it on the fire and say, sacrifice to the fire gods. And he thought that was just hilarious. So he did this for a while, but what he didn't realize was every time he went over there, he was sloshing out a little bit more gasoline around, and basically leaving a trail from the fire pit over to his bike. So the next thing you know, he made a sacrifice to the fire god, and the fire ran off into the grass and across the trail. And this guy said it just made a beeline right around to his motorcycle, and poof, his whole motorcycle was on fire. And then his sacrifice to the fire god got a little bit more significant. It's not funny, but at the same time, it kind of was. I kind of looked at that as a Darwinian moment. Selective. What's the word I'm looking for? Not. God. Anyway, I think probably sometimes folks like that need to be weeded out just a little bit. Well, a couple people seem to think that might be an idea. And that's what I'm working on in the back of my mind. So it won't change this. I hope to keep doing this for a long time, but it might give me something else to. I want to learn how to do editing better, and I say better. I'm no good at it at all yet. So anything would be better. But anyway, I would like to expand and do something like that. See how it works out. It may not last. If he agrees to do it, it may not go over. The guys down there may not want to talk. Although I suspect some of them will. That most of them like to. That's one of the reasons they all come together. They like to talk about their travels. And some of these guys really travel. There's a couple of these guys. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and there's at least one of these guys that would get up and ride his motorcycle to Birmingham, Alabama, just to eat breakfast. Get up and leave Knoxville at 4 a.m. so he can drive down to someplace like Birmingham. I'm just picking that out of my hat, to eat breakfast down there with some guys from Alabama or something. I mean, they do stuff like that. All right, Jay. I don't know how long a quick nap is for you. For me, sometimes it's more like a quick, longer nap. Just depends on if anybody wakes me up. And being retired, I've really learned to appreciate the value of a good nap. I didn't used to like naps. Unfortunately, now I probably take too many. But anyway, that's the kind of people. And I know a lot of them. There's a couple of guys that I actually have already missed. One guy that was really, really nice guy that rode amazing distances on a motorcycle he had that just blew me away. And he was quick, and he rode far and fast. And unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. So I don't get any more stories out of Ed, but I know I'll have stories about him. Yeah, and as you get older, naps become a more important part of your lifestyle. They can become too important part of my lifestyle, I'm afraid. Sometimes I get mad at myself because I'll sit down and do something, and I'll end up falling asleep, taking a nap, and then I don't end up getting everything done I need to. That's another thing that's nice about being retired. Most of the things you need to do can be put off till tomorrow. So I have to be real careful not to do that with everything. When you're retired, you'll understand. I picked a heck of a time to retire. I retired, and then I was having some back problems, but then COVID hit. So I didn't get to do as much that first year as I really would like to have done. And I was struggling with my asthma a bit more and just things like that. So the first year I was retired, the first few months weren't as good as They could have been, I guess. Then the second year, COVID hit, and then my back went out, and I've had surgery and all that, so I'm still recovering. So far, my retirement has not ended up exactly the way I'd like for it to, but I'm working on it. And Brendan, I've even discussed, I've always said I don't want to do this, but we have discussed getting a 3-wheel motorcycle just to be able to travel a little bit. If I can't hold up my 2-wheeler, I may have to go that route. It's not my plan. That's not my preferred method, but push comes to shove, I'm going to, because I miss riding a lot. I've been doing it since I was 14, and that's 50 years of my life. I've been riding a motorcycle, and there were some spots in there where I didn't have one, which was brutal. Honestly, I missed them terribly. But there was also years when I didn't do anything but ride. And I spent a couple of years driving to work about 30 miles every day in all weather, hot and cold, rainy, didn't going to work on my bike. I mean, I put 60,000 miles on a motorcycle in a couple of years just because I rode it everywhere. I completely stayed out of cars and went places with Brenda if we needed to go and that kind of thing, but I didn't drive to work. And just the best part of that was riding home every day. I mean, I always picked a different route home with whatever, there was a limit on how many routes I could do and get home before midnight. But I used to call that taking the long way home. I wrote some stories about that when I was doing the website. Probably ought to look, see if I don't know if I've still got any of that stuff or not. But I was also trying to write back then more. And so I need to pick, that's another thing I'd like to pick back up on writing. Okay, I'm probably boring people to death at this point. Somebody else does something out there. Tell me something else you're doing tell me about a 4th of July tradition you're doing or something. And I'll tell you about, we don't have so many these days, but when I was young, we did. When I was this early yonker, probably early school days, we used to go every year on 4th of July. We would go to Kingsport, Tennessee, and which back then seemed like such a long ways off. It was probably 20 miles. I drive further than that to work now, or did. That might have been a little bit more than that, but not much. But back then it seemed like it was. And it was all 2-lane roads. There weren't any big highways and stuff. But we would go to Kingsport every year on the 4th of July. Probably go over to my grandmother's, which lived on the other side of Kingsport, in the holler. Well, it wasn't named after them. The one next to them was named after them. But anyway, we would go there. My uncle and his children, or a couple of his kids and friends, they'd load up horses, and they would all go to the 4th of July parade in Kingsport. And they always, a lot of parades you see today, even today, if you watch the Rose Bowl parade, there's always a contingent of horses. And they're usually dressed up in their finest. The riders are, and the horses are, for something like that. Well, they used to do that kind of back there, but it was more like a wagon train sort of an event. And usually it was at the very end of the parade. And, people would just ride their horses. They'd get out there and line up, and some of them had wagons to pull. I guess it's sort of a wave back to the past, and pioneers moving in wagons and people who were riding horses. But I always wanted to do that with them. I always wanted to get one of the ponies and ride with my cousins. A couple of the younger ones were on ponies. The rest of them were on, full-grown horses. But there were, I don't know how many people did it. Maybe 100, maybe a couple of hundred would join in that part of the parade. And I always wanted to do that. And then at some point we stopped going. I can say they may have stopped the parade. I don't know. Or maybe they just stopped they stopped riding in the parade, so my mom didn't feel the need to go participate anymore. But that used to be in every 4th of July thing that we did. And then, of course, there was something else that happened. There's probably a gap in there, though, but the little town we lived in was, I say I'm from Johnson City, but I was really from Jonesboro, which is the oldest town in Tennessee. was the original capital of the state of Franklin, which actually technically never existed completely, but it was an attempt to create a state free from North Carolina at one point. So the state of Franklin was going to have its own government since we were over here. Or I say we, them. Another story, but another little fascinating part of history. But anyway, the town of Jonesboro started having what they called Jonesboro Days, and this happened partly during the 1976 bicentennial celebrations. I think may have been the year that they kicked this off. But since Jonesboro is also the oldest town in the state, it became a thing. In the first few years, it was about crafts and art on the streets and maybe a parade. Just different things that people and live in the country do. There might have been a car show off on one end of town, but there was lots of booths where you could buy crafts and stuff, some historical stuff, some junk, I suppose. There was always food vendors out everywhere. And in fact, one of the things we used to always do is there was a Ruritan club that was operated out of a small town called Limestone, which is, again, a little bit further away. Limestone is actually where David Crockett's from. Most people have heard of David Crockett. Actually, David was his name. He preferred David, but most people call him Davy around here anyway. But he was born in Limestone, right on the banks of Limestone Creek. And my aunt worked there at that park for many years as a park guide, I suppose, or not so much that. She worked at registration and that sort of stuff, but she worked there for a long time. Anyway, they used to have something called David Crockett's birthday celebration. It was every year in August. And they would have that, and they would have a pageant, for Miss Davy Crockett or something. And they'd have food, and there was always the Ruritan Club that kind of put it on and sponsored it, had a barbecue. And they had these big, long pits that they would make out of concrete blocks, and they would smoke and cook chicken, half chickens on that. It was the best chicken I think I have ever eaten. So when Jonesboro Days happened, that's what Brenda's talking about, the barbecue they had. So they moved up to Jonesboro Days and would set up there. I think they were still doing Crockett Days back then, but they would come up to Jonesboro and set up their pits, and that was where we always went there to get something to eat. That was our favorite place to go get food. Was the Limestone Ruritan barbecue chicken. It was just so good. Oh man, it was good. And now that I'm saying that, they started before the 1976 bicentennial, because I was going there in high school, so that had to be before 76. I have to look up and see what they give as the official birthday of Jonesboro. Maybe that's maybe it's an anniversary of that actually got it started. Because I probably went a day or two or a time or two before Brenda and I were dating. So probably when I was in what we used to call junior high, or maybe seventh or eighth grade. Anyway, it was a fun time. They had storytellers come in. That got to be a big thing. In fact, that got to be such a big thing that now Jonesboro is the center for the National Storytellers home base. That's not the right word for it. National Storytellers Association or Society, I'm not sure which. And that got to be a big thing on its own, and there was a big center. There was a center built for it. There are people still, as far as I know, to this day, go there to tell stories one day a week. Different people would come for that. I used to know some folks that participated in that and would go there and speak at least once a week and sit around and tell stories for the guests and visitors and whatnot, and the tourists. And for a while there was a national storytelling week or weekend oftentimes around in October, because they would have a big haunted ghost story type things up on the hill, cemeteries, and that sort of stuff. I don't know if Brenda ever went to that or not. I can't remember. But that became a big deal. In fact, if you look that up, I think the storytelling, and I can do that while we're sitting here, but the storytelling, national storytelling thing, it got so big that the university created a whole, not criteria. Well, they started classes on all that, the part role storytelling played in history, the role it played in passing on history, oral history from generation to generation, and that sort of stuff. And they've East Tennessee State University has an entire curriculum. That's the word I was looking for, based around folk arts and folk stuff. And you can get a degree in that. You can actually get a degree in spinning yarns and telling stories. If this comes up, I'll put a link. Jonesboro, Tennessee. Yep. Let me make sure this is the one. They're going to do it this year, 2021. Let me make sure this is the right one. Yep. They're not just national anymore. They're international. I'll put it in here just because it's a thing. There you go. If anybody's interested, you can check out my hometown and some of the stuff that goes on there. That might not be the ideal way to do that, but it does get you there. And what they've got, they're showing on one of the first pages here, I just opened up, is the Storytelling Center. That actually used to be one of my the town library where I used to go on a regular basis and get my books, especially in the summertime when school was out. I would go down there and get the books about history that I read. Some of them I read every summer. There was a series or two of books that I absolutely loved about early history of America. And somewhere in there is when I learned the phrase about Ben Franklin, because my mom used to get on me after a while. She'd say, haven't you read that book before? And I would say, well, yes, I've read this book before. And she said, why are you reading that? Get you a different book. And I said, well, I want to read this one again. So I finally found a quote supposed to be by Benjamin Franklin. I figured that might do her. And Benjamin Franklin said that it was better to read one book many times and learn something than read many books one time and learn nothing. And so I took that to heart. So if I really liked a book, it wasn't too unusual for me to read it again. And I've been doing that ever since. I don't do it as often as I should now, but that's another way I fill this cranium up full of not trivial knowledge. What is Brenda saying over here? I got to catch up. Yes, I do remember that, Brenda. She did, and there was a gentleman that lived in that town called Paul Fink. And you can probably look him up too, because he wrote a lot of history books about East Tennessee and the Appalachian Mountains. And he was considered one of the great historians of that area. And he used to come down and sit and talk to her and tell her stories. But the cabin they lived in was supposed to be one of the oldest remaining cabins in that area that was still around. And it's called all right, Brandon, tell us what it was again. I'm going to say it wrong. Seems like it was the Taylor House or Taylor something. But one summer she got a job working there and being a greeter, and I wouldn't say it, maybe an interpreter a little bit. But yeah, she wore the colonial type attire that they would have worn, that the ladies would have worn at that time, or a common, housewife, not necessarily a lady of fashion or, big city types, but, local. She said a mock cap and a big dress. So it was kind of neat. She still has I'll have to take a picture of this or get her to. She could post it on her Instagram site. I'll show her how to do that. But at some point, they gave her this little kind of a takeaway token. It wasn't a big deal, but it was a piece of wood from the house, and it seems like it had something else in it. I want to say a coin, but that may not be the case. But it was from that house. When they put it back up, I guess a piece I'll put this in here. I do wish I'd paid more attention, as I would sit and listen to Mr. Paul Fink, the town historian. He would walk around town and then come and sit down with me in the old cabin and just chat. And Paul Fink was an interesting guy. Like she says, he was the town historian. He was also very instrumental in getting the creating and building the Appalachian Trail. And I'd have to go back and read up on that to get all the facts, because it's been a while since I've done that. But he was heavily involved in that at one time. And if you guys know that, or don't know, or some of you may know, that the Appalachian Trail runs from North Georgia all the way up to Maine along the mountains, the Appalachian mountain line chain, and crosses through Tennessee and North Carolina, kind of on the state line for the most part, goes through the Smokies, exits up into Virginia. But he had a lot to do with that somehow, and I can't remember all the details, but he was involved in that. He was, like I said, an interesting guy. The town of Jonesboro is kind of interesting. There was a lot of things that went on there. One of the first newspapers that came out before the Civil War about emancipation of the slaves came from Jonesboro. A friend of mine, one of my best friends in high school, actually lived in that house where they printed it. It was printed in the basement. The guy had a print shop set up. It may have been secret at that time, because while East Tennessee was primarily a non-slave area and wanted to stay in the Union during the Civil War, there were folks there who didn't. So I'm not sure how that went over, but they did print not the Emancipation Proclamation. That's what Lincoln signed. Maybe it was just called the Emancipator, but it was a newsletter, news sheet that they would send out or hand out to people about why slavery should be abolished. Christopher Taylor House. Yes. Thank you, Brenda. Tell them what they gave you since you're back in here, what those mementos amounted to. That was it. A nail and a chip of wood. So that, that may not sound like much, but I think it's pretty cool. I didn't realize that it came straight from Mr. Fink. That's interesting too. And unfortunately, Mr. Fink passed away quite a few years back, I guess now. But that was interesting. And that cabin, she didn't work in it all the time or for that long, but that cabin kind of became the central point of the Jonesboro days, at least for a while. It's right beside the Storytelling Center, and they used to dole out information and stuff for visitors as they came by. But the town, I'm sure they probably still do. But it was an interesting job for her to do that summer. It wasn't air conditioned, so it was hot, like she said. It was in the summer, which around here is can be, like I said, can be pretty murderous at times. It seems that way anyway. Back in those, I don't know what I was doing then. I'm not sure where I was working back in those days. I might have been working at free service. I might have been working in a warehouse then, because we weren't married at that time. We were still dating, or we were dating. We were still in high school, I guess. And yes, Brenda and I were high school sweethearts, so we've been together for a long time. I'm actually amazed she's put up with me that long. I couldn't get rid of her because nobody else would take care of me. Now, if we just had grandchildren, Brenda, you could pass that on to them and they could carry it on through life. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen. Maybe a grand dog. Let's see something. Since I'm doing this, let me try one more thing. When I grew up, they spelled Jonesboro Jonesboro. Simple enough. But as the Jonesboro thing got bigger, historically they changed the spelling. Now it's Jonesboro. Jonesborough. Here's a link for that. I'm not sure how much this will be informational or more about just town tourism, but you might find it interesting if you have time to look at it. I was wondering if they'd show the Christopher Taylor house still. There's a lot of interesting shops down there now. There was always antique stores and stuff around. Wow, that's a big tent full of people there. I caught myself looking at something here. I might see somebody I know. Hang on just a second. Not that I still know a lot of people. There's a couple of microbreweries there in Jonesboro now. I never thought I'd live to see that day. Of course, there's a lot of restrictions. If you live in the town, most of the houses that are in town are old houses that date back. I don't know if they get some buildings may actually go back to towards the Revolution. I don't know if there's anything left from that true time period at the beginning, but there are a lot from the early 1800s. And the fact that, like I said, the house my friend lived in was really old, and it was 3 or 4 stories. It seemed like it had a 2-story basement, and which I found amazing. The furnace and stuff was like in the very bottom, and here it says Jonesboro is the storytelling capital of the world. Unfortunately, most of the stories I would have to tell about it were probably, the statute of limitations is up on all that stuff, so I wouldn't have to worry about it too much. Anyway, it was a pretty neat place to grow up. It could have been a lot worse, I think. Let me see if I can find one more. The courthouse there is historic too. It's been there for a very long time. Oops. It's caps button. Yeah, there's a picture of it. Let's see if I can pull that up. Let me see if I can share this rather than send it to you. Let me see if I can pull it over here. Bear with me, folks. I'm a rookie. Okay. I want to share this screen. Let's see how this works. There it is. Oh, what did I do? I think I clicked it twice. There's the Christopher Taylor home or house. And that's where my lovely wife worked when she was in high school for a summer. And as you can see, there's a historical sign there, which unfortunately we can't read on this screen. Maybe you can blow it up. This is downtown Jonesboro. Probably the most modern building there is this one, right? If you can see my cursor right here on the left. And that's what I used to know as the Mock Pharmacy. And there used to be a Western Union. Western Auto. Does anybody in here remember Western Auto stores? They've probably been gone a long time now. Let's see what's going on. I went to the ghost story session. Yep, that's the storytelling I was thinking about. What was the old cheese part, Tina? Statute of limitations part? Well, if that's it, it mostly had to do with fireworks and soaping people's windows. Because, like I said, they used to do stuff around Halloween too. That is funny. Why would they do that? Anyway, that was downtown. That was the. Back up a minute. This is downtown. I'm actually amazed they haven't closed this off to cars or made it one way or something to control traffic more. But there are still stores and businesses here that people work out of, some old offices and things like that are still downtown. The far end of the street used to be an old stagecoach, literally, inn that was still in operation to some degree, and that's been redone. I think it might be a bed and breakfast. When we were growing up, it was actually kind of rough looking. There was the local cab service right out there, if you want to call it that. I mean, that's what they called it, but it was just a guy and his father. He had a couple of old cars, and they drove, would go for hire. Not sure how formal it was, but it was almost like Uber before there was an Uber. Anyway, that was the main street, and this is another view of the house. I think that's the back. Well, you know what? That may be the front, because see the white building on the left may be the one of the churches that's on Main Street down there. It's also got some age on it. I can't remember when it was built. That looks like when they first put the cabin in there, that photo. And here's another view of downtown. See, you can tell by looking at these buildings along this side are pretty old. Like I said, there's Civil War, pre-Civil War era type buildings in downtown. That church on the far end, the white steeple, that's got some really old stained glass windows in it that are supposed to be very valuable. I know they had a fire in that church or something like that some years after we moved away from there, and they managed to save most of the windows, which was a big deal. So they rebuilt or put them back in or whatever it was happened. Maybe it was a storm. But anyway, I know they saved it was a big deal to save the windows because they were saying they were so old and whatnot, they'd be irreplaceable. So that was kind of a big deal. This is what was called the Chester Inn back when I was growing up. And the windows you see along the bottom here behind that red car, that's where the library used to be that I used to get those books in I love so much. And I remember I just loved to go to that library. It was old and smelled like old books. And I don't know, I even remember the librarian or librarians. And what was cool about it was you could rent a book, or not rent a book. You could get a book and keep it longer than you could at the school library. So I didn't have to go back as often to renew or to get another one. And I had to pay a few fines there too. I'll have to admit that. But I love books, so it was a good place for me to hang out. I guess it kept me out of more trouble. I believe this is this may be what they call the Three Sisters home, which I believe some of these are now bed and breakfasts and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's another Main Street shot from a slightly different angle. Some different stores. There's a candy shop. There's a toy shop of some sort there with crafts. There's a couple of little diners down through here. I'm not sure what all is down there right this moment because it was somewhat fluid for a while. And you can see some of the fall decorations. There's some mums, pumpkin, bale of hay, the brick sidewalks. I can remember when they tore up the streets of downtown to bury all the power lines and anything that was above the street so that they could make it all look more turn of the century-ish, I guess, to look older, to fit the profile they were trying to create with Jonesboro days. And they had the place torn all to pieces for a couple of years. Seems like it may not have been that long, but Main Street in Jonesboro was tore all to hell. Pardon me. And I drove into Jonesboro one night in the middle of the night with a friend of mine, and my mom's old car. So I was probably maybe 16 or 17, and it was still open. You could still drive on it, but it was torn on pieces. It looked like a war zone. And I hit a bump or a hole where they were burying lines and broke the whole right front wheel off the car. It just fell off. it fell over. It broke the ball joint on top, so it just rolled over. I'm going down the road sideways and skidded to a stop. I got a tow truck to pull me up to my buddy's house that lived in town. We parked it along the street behind his house and replaced the ball joint, and I took it home eventually. Thought mom and dad would kill me, but they didn't. I didn't know that for all I knew, the cops had locked me up for disturbing Main Street. That's okay, Kay. Thanks for coming back. Now, let's see here. Since I'm touring my hometown, I might as well show a couple more. This building right here was maybe that was crap. I'm not pretty sure the Chester Inn was the one where the library was. This one's where the cab stand was. And this wasn't really, somebody lived here. I think they lived there and ran the cab service out there. But now I believe this was an old stagecoach inn back when the stage ran through Jonesboro. So that kind of dates it. This was an inn where people stayed. And I think Andrew Jackson was known for staying in this one or the one by there. Andrew Jackson actually had it's something I'd forgotten about. He actually had a duel in Jonesboro. They used to make a big deal about this, but Andrew Jackson was kind of a hothead, and he was sort of known for fighting and carrying on before he was president, maybe even after. But he had a couple of different duels. This one was famous because some man had, I believe the premise was a man there had either made a proper advance to his wife or insulted his wife, Sarah, or something to that effect. So Andrew Jackson challenged him to a duel, and up just outside of town, if you went up to town about where that white church was earlier and you turned to the left, is where I played ball when I was a kid. There were baseball fields and stuff there. Well, that was where they had this duel. I don't know what they called it. Maybe it's like Jonesboro Meadows back then or something. But anyway, they had a duel, and Andrew Jackson, I can't remember if he got injured, and I don't remember now if he killed the other guy or if the other guy just got shot. He may have died later, but it was kind of an infamous duel. And Lord have mercy, it's almost 1 o'clock. Okay, at 15 minutes, I'm going to get off here, guys. I am sorry, I've tied up. Somebody's going to have to start getting on me about that. I'm going to have to put some mods in not for the people in my chat, but for me to keep me under control, because obviously I am out of control. I'll go through a few more. I just found this site, so I'll go through these pictures. This building right here, this white looking one, when I was growing up, was the laundromat for a long time. It had been some famous building in town, but it was a laundromat. And my buddy's parents owned and ran that laundromat. I guess they owned that building. And they ran the laundromat. So it was his job. He used to make us mad. It was his only job. We had real jobs. We had to have real jobs, but that's when he'd go down there every night, shut down the laundromat, and then he had to mop the floor and empty the trash, that kind of stuff. But that was the Jonesboro laundromat, which seems like such a strange thing now for it to be, but that's what it was. And this building right beside of it was a bank. Here's another picture downtown. There's the pharmacy I was talking about, which now looks like it might be a bookstore. That's cool. Here's another sign. Let's see what this one. This 1778 landmark was the home of Captain Christopher Taylor. So this is about the house Brenda worked in. Revolutionary War officer and a state of Franklin leader. Andrew Jackson, 7th President of the United States, boarded here in 1788 while practicing law in Jonesboro. I forgot he practiced law there. Originally located 2 miles west of town, this house was brought here as a public heritage by the Jonesboro Civic Trust and the town of Jonesboro through the generosity of the Judge David Vines and Frank Hawkins families, the Tennessee Historic Commission, and the Department of the Interior. So you can see it was a group effort to get this moved into town. I'd forgot Andrew Jackson boarded there. That's interesting. Now, of course, that was all long before he was president. I still say that looks like the back side of the. I still think that looks like the back side of the cabin because that's the front side. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, that's probably the front there. I know you can go out the back because I remember walking through it. There's a different perspective of downtown Main Street if it pops up. They ain't not open. Oh, this is one of those kind of pictures. All right, if I make anybody car sick, let me know. Let me see if I can pull this around or seasick. Can't read what that sign says. JRT something. That Eureka Bites is where the cab stand used to be, right here. And this house that yellow now was where my buddy grew up. And I've always said it was a 3-story house, but that looks 2-story. I wonder if they, there was something up here. Maybe there was actually a room up here too. But I don't went deep. His room was right here on this corner. You can't see my hand, but I'm right up here. And that house beside them belonged to a gentleman named May, who was a lawyer in town for Southern Railroad. I spent a lot of time down there. We had a dark room in this house, the May house, at one time. And there's Christopher Taylor again. So anyway, all right, I'm going to shut that down. Thank you guys for, oops, I'm still sharing. That's an old magazine I found a copy of that I was reading. Let me stop screen. There we go. Okay. All right, guys, I've taken up enough of your Saturday. Now that I realize what time it is, I will apologize, and then I'll say thanks for hanging around. The 5 or 6 people that have done so, I really appreciate. And I've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've gotten some information out of it. Oh my gosh, my old cat Spooky's at the door. He's wanting in. I'm sure you guys can probably hear him. He's loud. Anyway, yeah, some of those buildings, it was kind of hard to tell the front from the back. And some of those houses actually have kind of been turned around, if you know what I mean. They're, at one time they may have used the other side of the building and more as the front. And, but it was kind of cool growing up in a place like that. I mean, I'll be honest, it was different. As I got a little older, I was kind of more proud to be from such a historic place. And you heard the cat. Yeah, that was my old cat, Spooky. He's come down here looking for me, and he's found the door closed. That's his new occupation, is finding where I'm at and letting me know I need to come back upstairs and hang out with him for a while. I think it's old age getting to him. I swear I do. I believe I don't think he's got cat dementia, but I think he's getting cranky. He's the cat I've often said. He's the cat that yells at everybody to get off the grass. That's for sure. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You could walk straight through that house and never stop. I mean, it was just that way. It's a straight through path from the front of it to Main Street to the back to where there were some parking lots and stuff. Eventually, I think there was almost like a grassy set down area back there. I'm talking about the Christopher Taylor house again. Anyway, folks, it is almost 1 p.m., which I can't believe. So once again, we have managed to, as the tick and tack, or the car guys on NPR, I can't click and clack used to say, and you're thinking you've wasted another beautiful 3 hours sitting here listening to Tim Pruitt talk, but I appreciate it. And I'm glad to get to talk, and I'm glad to talk to you folks, and I'm glad when you talk back and when we interact, and I have a great time doing this. Whoa, there's somebody from the West Coast. Actually got me before we went off. That would be Garrett, Brenda, the Californian fellow that I talk to from time to time and write long missives and discuss issues. Yeah, some of them did call them shotgun houses. You're right, Kay. They were just like from one straight through from one end to the other or one side of the other. You could, I guess the old idea was you could shoot straight through it. And There you go, Tina. Same idea. Exactly. And that's true too. They were usually facing each other or alternating, but they were opposite each other. Kind of like you think of a sort of a modern, cheaper hotel or something like a Days Inn or something where you walk down the center hall and there's doors on each side. How are you doing, Garrett? Glad you made it in today. You got here just in time because we are about to head off. I realized how late I was. I don't know what happens. I get started and it just time just spins really fast. I think there's a time warp thing going on here. I can't imagine that I've talked that long, or that we've all been here since 10 o'clock. Good. I hope Hannah's feeling better. I know she's not been feeling well. Hopefully everybody else is too. Spooky, wait. Sorry, guys. I can't get to the door. I would open it for him and let him in. Brenda, if you're still listening, you could probably come down and let him in if you had a moment. Okay, I'll look at that, Garrett. I'll try to put some reasonable thought into it and write back if it's something along that lines. Garrett and I exchange ideas from time to time, so we're on the same wavelength sometimes and sometimes different, but we kind of like to expound upon things and work an idea back and forth. So it's a good exchange of ideas and stuff. That's good. I'm glad. Hope she gets feeling better soon. I didn't realize. I knew she'd been sick, but I didn't realize she'd been sick that long. Seems like it's been a couple of weeks now. I don't know. Was she sick? Was she sick when you guys went to Disneyland the last time? Which has not been that long ago. I know Michelle got sick while you guys were there, or was sick, and she was sick for a week or so, and then Hannah wasn't online because she didn't feel good. So you and Gabe, I guess, made it too. Hopefully, it's bad when everybody in the house gets sick. Well, that's good to know. Well, I hope everybody else is well. I hope if you're not, you're feeling better and get well soon. I know everybody out here was always thinking and praying for folks in the family. And it is a great family. It is, as someone often says, the family we choose versus the one we had. And sometimes the one we choose fills a lot of needs that sometimes the family we had by birth didn't feel. And that's not a bad thing. And I'm not saying that's to be anything against families. I certainly do believe the family is an important part of our lives, but there can be other family and friends that really mean a lot. And this one certainly does that for a lot of people. It fills a lot of niches. It's I never dreamed that I'd be part of something like this. And sometimes I don't feel like I'm part of it because I'm not as much Disney, but you guys always make me feel welcome and at home, and are always willing to listen to my stories and what I talk about, or what things we talk about. Probably mostly what I talk about. And I'm always looking for guests. So if anybody ever wants to come on, let me know. I enjoy doing the show by myself, but I also have, Chris was with us for a while, and Chris may be back again soon. At least once in a while. He wasn't feeling well there for a while, so kind of took a break, but I think he's feeling a lot better now. I think. I don't talk to him as much. I need to contact him. But if anybody else ever wants to try their hand at live streaming or just coming on and talking, I'd be glad to have you. We'll talk about. I'm sure we can talk about some interesting things. Yeah, I'm definitely part of the world, but that's saying a lot, Garrett. Some of the world I might not choose, but this world I do. So from that, like I said, I was, last week or week before, some of you guys know I was kind of down in the mouth. And part of that was because of something else that happened. And, the guy was very rude to me at the hardware store, and that kind of put me off and made me think. And, made me realize that everybody, just because you're handicapped, doesn't mean everybody understands or appreciates that. So, I mean, he almost got cracked in the head by a cane. So I guess if he had that, this this walking stick right here has got a big brass knob on the end of it, and he just about got that across the head. But that's a different story, and I didn't do it. So come here, buddy. Oh my gosh, come here. All right, this is the screamer. This is who you were hearing, Kay or Tina, whoever said that. And he was looking for me. He's almost attached to Teddy stays with me all the time, but this guy has been around for about 20 years. He's about 20 now. And I'm the only one pretty much he's ever let hold him or he's ever wanted to be part of. And like I said, now he's decided that he knows where I'm at, so he can come find me, and he'll just scream at us to, get his way, get his point. And he's at the same time, he's getting kind of spoiled. He gets a treat at night usually when I go to bed. So last night, Brenda gave it to him a few minutes early. So when I got up there, he thought it was time for another one because, he always gets fed when Tim comes up. So we had to work through that. He finally crawled up and went to bed. But yeah, Garrett, I don't know if I told you about that or not, but I may have. If I didn't, I will. But, that kind of set me to think and set me off at the same time. That's okay, Pearl. I'd much rather you did that. I mean, you feeling better is way more important than, being on here, although I'd love to have you in. One of these days, we're going to talk a little bit more about your Southern history, the good parts, if there are some, and we'll have to do that. Yeah, Kay, I think he does. He's probably maybe skinnier. He's always been a skinny little cat. Now he's. I'll tell you about it, Garrett. He's just our bag of bones, but he eats regularly. He's not sick. He's just that way. He's always, like I said, he's always been a thin cat. He's always ate well, but he just never gets put any weight on. He's watches his figure well, I guess. Okay, I keep saying I'm leaving, and I keep talking, so I'm going to leave. I'm going to do it this time. Pearl, I do hope you feel better soon. Yeah, I mean, for all its faults and foibles, and that certainly has plenty, there is some beautiful things down here and further south. Sometimes I didn't used to really consider myself Southern. I'm definitely below the Mason-Dixon line, which I guess technically makes me that way. Oh, this guy's probably less than, he might be 8. He might not be more than 6, and he's probably never weighed more than 8. I don't think he's a 10-pounder. He's certainly not 15. And he's nowhere near the size of Teddy and Simon. Simon is a 20-pluser, and Teddy's right there. But Teddy is like twice the size of this guy. He stands above him half again, taller and longer. And, I mean, he's just a big cat. And Spook's a little guy. He's the dumpster. He's our dumpster cat. And Brenda's always said he's just never forgot that life. So he tends to, hoard his food and scrounge everywhere he can. I mean, even after all these years, he seems like he's still living in the alley. But he's a good cat. He's always been a good boy. He just and he's always been friendly to everybody. He just he just got his way about him. And as he's getting older, I think he's getting a little cranky. But as you heard, when he wants something, he lets us know. He's loud, about as loud as any cat I've ever had, I think. Anyway, I hope everyone feels better. Well, I understand that, Pearl. I'm the same way. I have good days and bad. So, unfortunately, I've not had any headaches lately to speak of, but I have had some. My hips and my left knee are still giving me fits. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fix that. We'll see. As I get more, hopefully as I get stronger, it'll help that. And I'm hoping I can eventually work it out of my hips. right now they're hurting just from setting, so I'm going to have to get up and move around after I get offline. But I thought this chair would help, and it does, but it's not the perfect cure. So, and actually, I think I probably the other reason I need to get off is probably because Brendan and I, it looks like we may be buying a washer and dryer, or at least a washer. Our start has sprung a leak, and I can't get under there to fix it, so I don't know what we're going to do. Anyway, I appreciate everybody's tolerance, everybody's conversations, and I'm glad you're here. And I hope everyone has a glorious 4th of July. Hopefully, everybody will get to see some fireworks, even if they're from Disney World, for example, which is great. I know everybody's thrilled that the fireworks are back at Disney World, and hopefully they'll be back at Disneyland too soon, Garrett. I know right now they're not able. I'm assuming that most places aren't. I don't know if they've got some kind of special permit or not, but I've got to go back and watch the stream. I've not seen the Epcot fireworks. I know they've been on at least twice, maybe 3 times, probably more. I've seen the Happily Ever After, whichever ones they're showing right now at Disney World, the Magic Kingdom, a couple of times, and those are just amazing. But I want to see the other ones too, and I can't wait to see whatever they come up with Harmonious. But I'm glad the fireworks are back. That just makes everything seem closer to normal, and I know there's a lot of people going now, so it's getting more crowded. So if you go down, have fun, stay safe. And this weekend, stay safe. Shooting firecrackers, don't hold them until they go off. That hurts your hand bad. Be safe with that. And wherever you go, just hope you have a good day. So if the good Lord is willing and the creek don't rise this week, we'll be back next Saturday morning. And maybe I'll have an update on the Tuesday night show or the nightly show. And see y'all then. So have a good weekend. Lots of peace and love, everybody. And I always have to remember how to get out.